My name is Narong. I'm 80 years old, and I'm going to tell you the ancient ritual right now without making you wait for it, because you deserve that honesty from the very beginning. The ancient ritual that many use to attract wealth quickly is not a ceremony. It is not a sequence of specific actions performed at a specific time with specific objects. It is not something passed down through mystical lineages to those deemed worthy of receiving it. Those things make for compelling stories. They do not make for compelling results. And I have spent 80 years watching what actually produces wealth in real human lives, and not once has the mechanism been a ritual in any mystical sense. The ancient ritual is this: work that is genuinely valued, offered consistently, claimed honestly, and built patiently over time. That is it. That is the ancient ritual. It has been producing wealth for thousands of years. It was ancient when my grandfather's grandfather was young, and it produces results with a reliability that no mystical ceremony has ever matched. Not because it is magical, because it is real. And reality, applied consistently, compounds in ways that magic never can. I know that is not what the word ritual in the title promised, and I know that part of you was hoping for something more immediate, something that required less from you, something that promised the wealth could come quickly through a specific and learnable sequence of actions that did not involve the slow and unglamorous work of building genuine value and claiming it honestly. I understand that hope. I lived inside it for real years of my real life. And what I learned is that the faster any promised path to wealth, the less reliably it produces what it promises. Stay with me, because what I want to share today is genuinely about wealth, about how it is actually built, about the specific practices that produce it with genuine reliability, and about why those practices deserve to be called ancient, because they have been producing results for as long as humans have been exchanging value with one another. I was born in northern Thailand into circumstances where material wealth was not the expected condition. The fantasy of sudden wealth through secret knowledge was present in the world I grew up in. I watched what happened to people who pursued that fantasy and what happened to people who practiced the unglamorous alternative. The difference in outcomes was consistent and instructive. The first element of the ancient ritual is the honest assessment of what value you are actually creating. Not what you wish you were creating, not what you could be creating under ideal circumstances. What you are actually creating right now for the people who encounter your work. This honest assessment is harder than it sounds, because most people have never genuinely separated the question of what they are worth as a person from the question of what value their current work actually creates for others. Those two things are not the same, and confusing them produces either the paralysis of undervaluing yourself because you have confused your work's current limitations with your fundamental worth, or the opposite error of overvaluing your current work because you are protecting your sense of self from accurate feedback. The honest assessment of value created is practical. It asks, what specific problem does my work solve for someone? How much does solving that problem matter to them? What would they lose if my work were not available? Those questions, answered honestly, produce an accurate picture of the value you are currently creating. And that picture is the foundation of everything else. And here's what I didn't understand then. The size of that value is not fixed. It grows when you genuinely invest in becoming more capable, more skilled, more precisely aligned with the problems that matter most to the people you are serving. The ancient ritual includes this growth, not as self-improvement for its own sake, as the deliberate expansion of the genuine value you can create. The second element is the honest claiming of what that value is actually worth. This is where most people, even those who create genuine value, lose enormous amounts of potential wealth over the course of their working lives. They undercharge, they accept the first offer, they do not negotiate when negotiation is available and appropriate. They set prices that reflect their anxiety about whether they are good enough, rather than the actual market value of what they create. This pattern is not a reflection of the market's honest assessment of their value. It is a reflection of the beliefs they carry about what someone like them can reasonably expect to receive. Those beliefs are almost never formed through accurate economic analysis. They are formed through family and culture and early experience, and the accumulated weight of times when they asked for something and did not receive it, and concluded that the lesson was to ask for less. The ancient ritual includes the practice of claiming honestly, of asking for what your work is actually worth, of being willing to have the negotiation rather than preemptively conceding it, of setting prices that reflect real value rather than anxious self-assessment. That practice, developed consistently over time, produces a compounding effect on earnings that is one of the most reliable wealth-building mechanisms available. The third element is the honest management of what arrives. This is the element that the quick wealth fantasy most thoroughly ignores, because the quick wealth fantasy is entirely about the arrival of money. It gives almost no thought to what happens after it arrives. But the management of what arrives, the specific and honest practices around spending and saving and investing, and the allocation of resources over time, is what determines whether what arrives builds or simply passes through. Most people who receive more money than they expected, whether through genuine effort or through luck, lose most of it within a few years. Not because they are foolish, because they have not developed the practices that retain and grow what arrives. The ancient ritual includes those practices. It includes the practice of knowing clearly what comes in and what goes out, the practice of setting aside something before spending the rest, the practice of making deliberate choices about where resources go, rather than letting them flow reactively toward immediate wants. Those practices, applied consistently over time, are what separate wealth built from wealth passed through. You know what surprised me most when I began to study how wealth is actually built in real human lives? How undramatic the mechanism is. How consistently the people whose financial situations genuinely improved over time were doing things that were available to almost anyone, but that required the kind of sustained, honest, unglamorous commitment that the quick wealth promise specifically exempts you from making. The mechanism was always the same. Create genuine value. Claim what it is worth. Manage what arrives. Repeat consistently over time. The fourth element is patience with the actual pace of genuine wealth building. This is the element that the promise of quick wealth is specifically designed to circumvent, and its absence is the reason most quick wealth approaches fail. Genuine wealth builds slowly, not because the universe requires you to suffer through slow accumulation, but because the mechanism that produces genuine wealth, the consistent creation and honest claiming of real value, is a process that takes time to compound. The math of compounding is straightforward. Small amounts, grown consistently over long periods, produce outcomes that seem disproportionately large to anyone who is not watching the daily contributions that produced them. The impatience with that pace is completely understandable. It is human. It is the direct product of hope encountering the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But the ancient ritual specifically includes the patience. It has to, because without it, the compounding never has time to work. The person abandons the genuine practice before it has had time to produce its most significant effects, and goes looking for the quick path that promises to deliver those effects without the waiting. And the waiting starts over from zero, with each abandoned practice and each new quick promise pursued. The fifth element is community. This is the element of the ancient ritual that is perhaps most invisible to the modern pursuit of wealth, because the modern pursuit tends to be individualistic. But genuine wealth throughout human history has almost always been built within communities of exchange. Communities where genuine value creates reciprocal relationships, where reputation compounds, where trust builds over time into something that generates opportunity consistently and reliably. The ancient ritual includes the practice of genuine engagement with the people you serve, not marketing in the manipulative sense, genuine care about whether what you are creating is genuinely solving their problem, genuine interest in their actual needs rather than your assumptions about their needs, genuine investment in the relationship beyond the transaction. Those practices build the kind of reputation and the kind of network that generates consistent opportunity over time, which is exactly what wealth built on genuine value creation requires. What most people don't realize is that the ancient ritual has been producing wealth for precisely as long as humans have been exchanging value with one another. It works in every economy and every culture and every generation, because its mechanism is not cultural or historical. It is simply the accurate description of how value flows between people. Value is created, value is recognized, value is exchanged, value compounds when managed honestly. That is the entire mechanism, and everything else every ceremony and every charm and every secret sequence of actions performed before buying a lottery ticket is decoration around a mechanism that either works or does not, based entirely on whether genuine value is genuinely created and genuinely claimed and genuinely managed. The practice that attracts wealth quickly, in the only meaningful sense of that phrase, meaning in the most direct and most reliable way possible, without unnecessary detours, is the practice of the ancient ritual. Not quickly in the sense of bypassing the time that genuine wealth building requires, but quickly in the sense of not wasting time on approaches that do not work. The most direct path to genuine wealth is always the one that goes through genuine value. At 80 years old, I have seen many people spend years pursuing shortcuts that cost them the time they would have needed to build something real. And I have seen many people do the unglamorous work of the ancient ritual and arrive at genuine financial security through it. The difference between those two paths is not talent or luck or access to secret knowledge. It is the willingness to do what actually works instead of what promises to work more quickly. Tell me in the comments where in the ancient ritual you feel you are strongest right now, and where you feel the most work remains. Not the impressive answer, the honest one, because the honest answer is the only one that can guide genuinely useful next steps. And if this message gave you something real to build from, stay close to this space, because the ancient ritual is not practiced once and then completed. It is practiced every day, in the ordinary hours, in the unglamorous consistency that actually produces what you are hoping for.